Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rashida. I'm not sure if any of you have heard about my story that happened to me last year. So basically, to start, I was born and brought up here in London. I'm a mother to 3 children who I am solely responsible for their decisions and their upbringing. To tell you about the school, Holland Park School, it's a school that I used to go to when I was younger. I studied business and finance there, so I left on good terms. It's one of the top schools in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea. So this school is literally across the road from me. Taking you back to the evening, so before that, just a little bit of background. Before I chose to put my daughter in the school, I had them in a normal mainstream school. And as a mother of daughters, obviously you're going to be protective over them. I decided that I wanted to take them out of mainstream and put them into an Islamic environment. So 2 years ago, I took them out and put them into an Islamic school. Even though the financial difficulty I knew it would come, I thought I'm going to have to work and just give it a try. I was willing to give up everything to put my children in the right environment. After a year or so, I knew that it was going to be difficult. So I decided that when my daughter got to secondary level, I would put her into a school. And it made sense because there was a school across the road from me. I'd been there before. It would lift the burden off and put them into mainstream school. So taking you to the evening, I was welcome as a parent. All the parents were welcome to a welcome evening on this time last year in May. On that evening, I arrived at the school with my daughter. I walked straight through to the gates. I walked past the security, walked past the teachers. I had no problems with security. They all greeted me, welcomed me as I came in. I went further on to sign in and met with other members of staff who also smiled and welcomed me. I was directed with the other parents into the main hall where I was seated with the rest of the parents. During this meeting, is when I initially started feeling uncomfortable. The head teacher started talking about how it was a secular school and they don't accept any show of religion. He also went on to say that no religion was allowed to be discussed in the building, and he brought up the example that there was a recent terrorist attack that happened that week. No one was allowed to discuss it. He then went on to say that we haven't got a prayer room and we're not going to provide you a prayer room. To me, I started feeling uncomfortable because the room had about 300 people, parents in there, and you could see there was about a handful, say 5 to 7 Muslims. So he was obviously aiming at us to say, we're not going to provide a prayer room. But the point was, we didn't ask for one. No one had asked for one. So he was making his stance clear from the beginning of how he felt towards Muslims. And furthermore, it wasn't necessary for him to mention such incident on an evening that's supposed to be on a positive note, welcoming new students. As soon as the presentation was over, I was standing with my daughter in the foyer, and I was approached by a member of staff who'd asked me to come into the room with her to have a word. As soon as I went into the room, I lifted up my veil as it was just me and her as a female. She went straight into telling me that we're a secular school, and I told her that I knew because the head teacher had mentioned it moments before. She then went on to say that we don't accept face veil in our school. I reassured her that my daughter won't be wearing a face veil and it was just me. Then she went on to say that it was me that had the issue with and that I wasn't allowed to actually approach the school or come in with a face veil, and she'd asked if I could remove it there and then. I refused and said that I had never heard of such a rule or policy from this school to say that I wasn't allowed to wear a face veil. She insisted that there was a rule and there was a policy and that I had to remove it, otherwise I'd have to leave the premises immediately. When I finished the conversation, we didn't agree on anything. I walked to the door to leave and she pointed to the exit of the back and asked me to exit out the back door of the school. This completely took me back and I took it as an insult. I said to her, I'm not going to leave out the back as my daughter is standing in the front waiting for me. She said, it's fine, I'll go and get it for you and then you can leave out the back. and I again refused and said, I'm going to come in the same way, leave the same way as I came in. She tried again to ask me to remove my veil on my way out, because you can clearly see that they didn't want to be associated with me in their school. She had no choice, as they can't forcibly remove it off my face as I was leaving. I was then escorted by members of staff, and they watched me to ensure that I left immediately. SubhanAllah, in the 14 years of wearing the face veil, I've never been spoken to and made to feel unwelcomed like I was that evening. My daughter was so upset after she refused to go to that school, knowing the way I was treated. And then to be told once you walk through that gate, as a child, you're on your own. I wasn't allowed to be involved in her parents' meetings, in her presentations. So all she knew was once she walks through that door, that's it, she's on her own. Yes, as a Muslim woman, you get comments and you get stares almost on a daily basis, but I don't let that stop me carrying on. Today, expressing yourself as a Muslim wearing niqab and hijab is against the British values. I wasn't prepared to send my daughter to a school where she loses her identity and made to feel ashamed of being a Muslim. I later on contacted the school and asked them if they could meet with me. I met with a member of staff who sat down with me and insisted again that there was a policy. I was adamant that there was no policy because I used to go there, and I'd been in there several times prior to the meeting because my daughter had tests and she'd come in to view the school, and not once was I stopped. As they were insisting there was a policy, we agreed to disagree and I left. At this point is when I turned to Cage for advice. Alhamdulillah, the Cage support was amazing. When you're going through a test on your own and those comments that you get from people judging your decision, you start doubting yourself. But what comes to mind, subhanAllah, is Surah Al-Ankabut, Surah Ayah number 2, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do the people think that they will be left to say, we believe, and they will not be tested? What sort of Muslim role model am I being to my children if I was just to give up and lift my veil for them? I need to be that positive role model for my children, to show them to stand up, because it was my right. And Islam doesn't teach us to turn our backs and accept dhulm. I'm not going to send my daughter to a school where her mother is not accepted and welcomed. If I accepted to take her to the school, I was giving up the right to any involvement in my daughter's education. As a mother, I value education and instill this into my children. But doing this for the sake of Allah, I had to have tawakkul and courage, whatever the outcome. When you speak out for justice, yes, you will be tested. And you need to keep firm, but put your trust in Allah of what's to come. SubhanAllah, before she got accepted for the school, I made dua and I made istikhara whether this school was the right school for her. And I knew that she would be accepted 100%, as I was in the catchment area. There was no reason for them to reject me. So I used to ask, Ya Allah, how are you going to show me that this school is not good? But subhanAllah, when this incident happened, I knew 100% this is the istikhara from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, the support Cage gave me was amazing. It changed everything. They allocated me to a caseworker. They got me in touch with a solicitor. And alhamdulillah, I had a good case and a good solicitor behind me. I could have chosen to pursue this further, but I didn't, as I didn't want to set precedents to them to banning the niqab in all schools, as I was advised legally. It turned out I had no policy. In September 2018, they reprinted every copy of the parent planner and put the policy in. I managed to get a hold of the previous year's policies, and there was nothing in there to state that no person is allowed to enter without a face veil. So for someone to do this openly and change a whole parent planner and policy and just get away with it is beyond me. But alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, I exposed the school, and by speaking to the Guardian, I put the story out, and alhamdulillah, made the front page. And because I spoke out, I encouraged many sisters who experienced a similar situation to come forward. And especially about the same school, people to come forward to the solicitor and told them their experience. I've ended up keeping them where they are now and just put my trust in Allah. So I ask you lot to please try and donate to Cage as much as you can. Jazakallah khair.